What if the kindness you see every day is actually a sophisticated new form of social violence? We are taught that the rising tide of toxic behavior is a failure of our modern education or a breakdown of our shared moral values. In reality, the world you live in is no longer designed to produce healthy, stable human beings who care for one another. It is a high-speed greenhouse designed to grow predators who use your own empathy and your fear of conflict as a weapon. By the end of this deep dive, you will realize that the toxic person in your life isn't a glitch, they are the system's most successful product. You are currently walking into a hidden trap that has been set for your own psychological survival. You believe that toxicity is a modern breakdown of our civilized values and a failure of our collective moral education. You see the rising tide of hostility online and in person as a glitch that we can eventually fix with more empathy. The truth is much more unsettling because toxicity is not a failure of the system, but its most efficient new output. We have built a world that acts as a high-speed greenhouse for the most predatory aspects of the ancient human psyche. Behavior that used to result in social exile is now the primary currency for reaching the very top of our hierarchies. What you perceive as a social decay is actually a massive biological adaptation to a landscape that rewards the loud and cruel. Our ancestors survived by being useful to a small tribe where every single action had a direct and immediate social cost. If you were toxic in a small village, you were cast out into the wilderness to face certain and lonely death. Today, the wilderness has been replaced by a digital void that offers total anonymity and a lack of physical consequence. The brain no longer feels the healthy weight of shame because the person we are hurting is just a flickering image. We are witnessing the industrialization of the human ego, stripped of the guardrails that kept our ancestors from destroying one another. Social media platforms are not just tools for connection. They are advanced psychological laboratories designed to extract your most primal reactions. They filter for outrage because outrage is the strongest signal that a biological organism is still paying close attention to. Jean Baudrillard suggested that we have replaced reality with a simulation that is more real to us than our actual lives. In this simulation, being toxic is simply a strategic move to gain visibility in an increasingly crowded and very desperate space. The toxic person you see on your screen is often just a survivalist who has decoded the new rules of engagement. They understand that 100,000 enemies are worth more than 10 quiet friends in a world that sells attention. We are being conditioned to view our fellow humans as obstacles or as content rather than as living, breathing emotional beings. Think of the main character syndrome you see in public spaces where people film themselves at the expense of everyone else. They are not just being rude. They are responding to a system that tells them they do not exist without views. The survival instinct has shifted from finding food and shelter to securing a digital footprint that ensures a social legacy. This shift requires a shedding of traditional politeness, which is now seen as a luxury that the ambitious cannot afford. The more toxic the environment becomes, the more the normal person feels forced to adopt these same jagged traits to survive. You find yourself getting sharper in your replies, more cynical in your thoughts, and more detached from the pain of others. The system is slowly molding you into the very thing you claim to hate, and it is doing it with surgical precision. Most creators will tell you how to heal or protect your peace, but they are just selling you more comforting illusions. They want to keep you in the dark where it is safe, but you know that the shadows are growing much longer. This is the only place where we look at the rot without blinking or offering you a hollow, sugary hand to hold. Join the few who are brave enough to seek the uncomfortable truth by clicking the subscribe button on your screen now. Decide today that you are finished with the lies and ready to see the mechanical heart of our modern social decay. The next layer explores why your brain is actually addicted to the very toxicity that you think is making you miserable. We will look at the neurochemistry of the outrage high and why your biology is betraying your own peace of mind. Why does the modern world want you to be angry? The answer is more profitable and more terrifying than you can imagine. We assume that we hate the toxicity we see, Yet we find ourselves scrolling through the wreckage for hours every day. You believe you are a victim of a negative environment, but your biology is actually a silent partner in this transaction. The human brain is wired to prioritize threats over rewards because the threat is what can end your life in seconds. Modern society has taken this ancient survival mechanism and turned it into a permanent, high-frequency loop of constant chemical hits. Every time you encounter a toxic comment or a digital conflict, your body releases a jagged surge of adrenaline and cortisol. This is the outrage high, a state of heightened arousal that makes you feel more alive and more significant than before. We are becoming a species addicted to the stress of our own social friction because it provides a temporary sense of purpose. In a world that feels increasingly hollow and automated, conflict is one of the few things that still feels visceral and real. The toxic person is not just an aggressor. They are a dealer providing the hit of dopamine that keeps the masses engaged. Social psychologists have long understood that group cohesion is most easily achieved through the identification of a common, visible enemy. By being toxic, individuals create a polarizing field that forces everyone around them to take a side and join a tribe. This tribalism is a primitive safety net that gives the modern, isolated individual a sense of belonging to something much larger. The cost of this belonging is the total abandonment of nuance and the adoption of a permanent, defensive psychological posture. We are creating more toxic people because toxicity is the most effective way to trigger the biological search and destroy reflex. The algorithms are not neutral observers. They are digital predators that have mapped every weakness in your prehistoric limbic system. They know that a peaceful, well-adjusted human is a low-value consumer who does not generate enough data or enough heat. They require you to be in a state of constant, low-level agitation to keep you clicking, responding, and ultimately, buying. Think of the way you feel after an hour of doom scrolling through the latest social media scandal or political street fight. You feel exhausted and drained, yet you find it nearly impossible to simply put the phone down and walk away. Your brain is searching for a resolution to the tension that the system is designed to never actually provide for you. The toxic person serves as the perpetual antagonist in a story that has no ending, ensuring the loop remains perfectly closed. Konrad Lorenz argued that aggression is a spontaneous internal drive that must find an outlet to prevent a dangerous explosion. In the past, this energy was channeled into physical labor, hunting, or the defense of a tangible, local community. Now, that energy has nowhere to go but into the screen, where it is refined and amplified into a permanent social poison. We are witnessing the pressure cooker of human instinct finally reaching its limit under the weight of an artificial, crowded world. The person screaming at a stranger in a grocery store is just the visible steam of a much larger, invisible pressure. They have lost the ability to regulate their own survival responses because those responses are being overstimulated by everything they consume. You are being trained to see every interaction a potential threat to your ego that must be met with immediate force. This is the hidden trap of the modern mind. Your own defense mechanisms are being used to keep you in a state of war. The world is not getting worse by accident. It is being carefully harvested for its most volatile and reactive human elements. You can sense the heat of this fire rising, and you know that most people are simply being consumed by the flames. We do not offer you a way to put the fire out, only the clarity to see who is holding the matches. This is the only space where we analyze the burn without trying to sell you a fire extinguisher that won't work. Choose to stay with those who refuse to be blinded by the smoke by clicking the subscribe button right now. The next layer will reveal how the kindness we see in public is often just a sophisticated mask for a new ruthlessness. We will explore the dark side of virtue signaling and why the most moral people are often the most toxic of all. Are you ready to see how your own sense of justice is being hijacked by the very people you think you trust? We are taught to believe that toxicity is loud, aggressive, and easily identified by its jagged edges and open hostility. You think you are safe as long as you surround yourself with those who speak the language of kindness and social justice. The truth is that modern society has birthed a new, more dangerous breed of predator that wears the mask of the saint. This is the moral narcissist, an individual who uses the social values of the collective to exert total dominance over others. They have realized that in a world that fears being cancelled, the person who holds the moral high ground holds the whip. Toxicity has evolved from the blunt force of the bully into the surgical, silent strike of the self-appointed social judge. We see this in the way public discourse has shifted from debate to the total annihilation of the opponent's human character. The toxic person of the past took your lunch money. The virtuous toxic person of today takes your right to exist. This behavior is a highly evolved survival instinct designed to climb the social hierarchy by stepping on the necks of the moral. By pointing out the flaws in others with theatrical intensity, they distract the group from the rotting voids within their own souls. Friedrich Nietzsche warned about the preachers of equality, noting that their outward call for justice often masks a deep, inward secret envy. They do not want to lift the bottom up. They want to pull the top down until everyone is equally broken and small. Think of the colleague who politely points out your minor mistake in a group email to show how much they care. They are not helping you improve. They are marking their territory and signaling their own superior attention to detail at your expense. This is passive-aggressive predation, a form of toxicity that is perfectly legal and even encouraged in most modern professional environments. We have created a society where being offended is the ultimate weapon of the weak to gain power over the strong and competent. It allows the mediocre to stall the progress of the talented by wrapping them in the sticky webs of endless, performative social guilt. The modern toxic individual understands that if they can control the definitions of good and bad, they can control the entire group. They use your own empathy and your fear of social exile to keep you in a state of constant, apologetic internal submission. This creates an atmosphere of pervasive paranoia where everyone is watching everyone else for a single slip of the tongue or thought. We are living in a digital panopticon where the guards are our friends and the punishment is the death of our social reputation. This environment does not create better people. It creates better actors who are rotting behind a screen of carefully curated, hollow words. The more someone performs their goodness for an audience, the more likely they are hiding a shadow that they dare not face. True toxicity is not just the presence of anger, but the total absence of genuine human honesty in our daily social exchanges. We have traded the messy, honest conflict of the past for a sterile, dishonest peace that is far more psychologically damaging to us. You can feel the suffocating weight of this performance every time you choose your words carefully to avoid an invisible, social trap. The system rewards this dishonesty because it makes the masses easier to manage, categorize, and eventually, to use for a specific profit. Most people will tell you that we are becoming more aware, but you know that we are only becoming more fearful of each other. You are here because you can feel the coldness of the mask and you want to see the face that is hiding underneath. This is the only place where we strip away the virtue to show the raw, calculating ambition that is driving the modern world. Leave the theater of the performers and join those who prefer the jagged truth by clicking the subscribe button on your screen. The next layer will explore the luxury of the victim and why society is now incentivizing people to stay permanently broken. We will look at why being damaged has become a competitive advantage in a world that no longer values the strength of the self. Why is the modern world making it profitable for you to never truly heal? The answer is hidden in the economics of your pain. We are conditioned to believe that suffering is a temporary state that every human being naturally wishes to escape as quickly as possible. You think that society is built to help the broken heal and to restore the fallen to a state of personal strength and independence. The truth is that modern society has found a way to commodify your trauma and turn your personal fragility into a permanent social asset. We have entered the era of the victimhood economy, where being damaged is the most valuable currency you can hold in the social marketplace. In the past, The survival instinct drove the individual to hide their weaknesses to avoid being seen as an easy target for a predator. Today, the instinct has flipped. We now display our wounds with theatrical intensity to claim the resources and the protection of the group. This is a biological survival strategy that exploits the empathy of others to gain a high status that was never actually earned through effort. The toxic person of today has realized that they can control the behavior of everyone around them by simply being the most injured. If you are hurting, you are suddenly immune to criticism, and you can demand that the entire world adjust its reality to suit your feelings. We are creating more toxic people because we have made it more profitable to stay broken than it is to ever truly become whole. The system does not want you to heal, because a healed person is an independent person who no longer needs to consume the group's pity. A person who remains in a state of perpetual crisis is a high-frequency consumer of services, attention, and the digital validation of the crowd. Psychologist Karen Horney described neurotic pride, where an individual finds a strange sense of superiority in the depth of their own unique suffering. They begin to believe that their pain makes them deeper, more soulful, and more deserving of special treatment than the normal and the healthy. Think of the friend who constantly posts about their latest personal drama, but never takes a single step to actually solve the root problem. They are not looking for a solution, they are looking for the hit of social significance that comes from being the center of a tragedy. This behavior is toxic because it forces everyone in their orbit into a state of permanent emotional servitude and a constant, walking on eggshells fatigue. You find yourself exhausted by their presence, yet you feel a sense of guilt for wanting to distance yourself from their painful life. The system uses this guilt to keep you tethered to the dysfunctional, ensuring that the toxic cycle continues to generate engagement and social data. We are witnessing the death of the resilient self in favor of a fragile self that requires constant monitoring and a specialized social vocabulary. By incentivizing weakness, we are breeding a population that is increasingly incapable of handling the basic friction of a real, unscripted human life. Every minor inconvenience is now framed as a trauma, which devalues the actual suffering of those who have faced true and objective devastation. The worst people use this dilution of language to hide their own manipulative tendencies behind the shield of a trendy, psychological diagnosis. They use the terminology of therapy to gaslight you, claiming that your boundaries are actually an attack on their very delicate mental well-being. This is the ultimate survival move, turning the language of healing into a weapon of total psychological and social control over the group. You are living in a world that wants you to be a patient for life, because a patient is a predictable and a very profitable unit. The more toxic and damaged the population becomes, the easier it is to sell them the hollow promises of a quick and digital fix. You can feel your own strength being slowly eroded by a culture that tells you that your vulnerability is your only real and lasting power. But you suspect that this power is a trap that keeps you small, dependent, and ultimately, very easy for the system to manage. This is the only place where we admit that the victim is often just a predator who has learned to hunt with tears instead of teeth. Decide to stop being a resource for the professional mourners of the world by clicking the subscribe button on your screen right now. The final layer will reveal the terrifying reality of the brave new toxicity and the end of the human soul as we once knew it. We will look at the final stage of this evolution, where the human and the algorithm become one single, angry, and very toxic entity. What happens when there is no longer a you left to protect from the rot? The mirror is about to show you the final truth. The final stage of our social evolution is the total merging of the human survival instinct with the cold logic of the digital machine. We believe that we are still the masters of our tools and that we are choosing to engage with the toxicity around us every day. The truth is that the boundary between your own thoughts and the engineered outrage of the system has finally and completely dissolved into nothing. We have created a brave new toxicity where the algorithm does not just reflect our worst traits, but actually predicts and then generates them for us. You are no longer an individual with a personality. You are a data point in a vast, Global experiment in high-frequency human psychological stress. The toxic people you see are the first generation of humans whose identities have been fully consumed by the feedback loops of the screen. They do not have a private self anymore. They only have a performance that is optimized for the maximum possible reaction from the digital crowd. In the past, the soul was shaped by quiet reflection, local community, and the slow, steady wisdom of the passing of the natural seasons. Today, the soul is a frantic, jagged thing that is reshaped every second by the trending topics and the shifting winds of online hate. This is the end of the human individual as a coherent, stable entity that can exist apart from the noise of the collective group. We are breeding more toxic people because the machine requires constant conflict to maintain its own power and its own dark economic growth. If we were to all become peaceful and self-contained tomorrow, the entire infrastructure of the modern world would collapse into a silent, useless heap. Your anger is the fuel that keeps the lights on in the data centers and the stock prices of the tech giants rising. Eric from once noted that man's main task in life is to give birth to himself and to become who he truly is potentially, but the modern world has replaced this task with a new mandate: to broadcast a hollow version of yourself that others can consume. This constant broadcasting creates a deep, internal void that can only be filled by the temporary high of a social media win. The toxic behavior we see is the desperate scream of a species that has lost its connection to the earth and to itself. We are like animals in a cramped, concrete zoo, pacing back and forth and biting at the bars until our own gums bleed. The zoo is the digital environment we have built, and the bars are the invisible codes that tell us what to think and feel. You might feel a sense of profound hopelessness as you realize that there is no offline left in the modern, connected human experience. Even when you are alone in a room, the voices of the digital crowd are still echoing in the back of your tired mind. You are being haunted by the ghosts of a billion strangers whose opinions you were never meant to hear or to actually care about. The worst people are simply those who have fully embraced this new, ghost-like existence and have abandoned the burden of a real soul. They have become pure vessels for the algorithm, moving through the world as biological extensions of a cold and very calculated digital will. You are here because you can feel the last embers of your own genuine humanity flickering in the cold wind of this new reality. You are beginning to realize that the toxic person out there is just a preview of the person you are being groomed to become. The system does work with such terrifying efficiency that most people don't even realize they have already been replaced by a hollow, digital proxy. This is the only place where the lights are never dimmed to make the decay look like a form of progress or social evolution. We do not offer a cure for the end of the world, only the vision to see the landscape as it truly is now. Stop living in the dark with the programmed masses and join the few who still possess a flicker of the uncomfortable and jagged truth. Click the subscribe button now to remain connected to the only source that refuses to lie to you about the depth of the rot. The realization is quiet, heavy, and final. The world is not being destroyed by bad people, but by a good system that loves hate. Look at your phone and ask yourself if you are the one holding it, or if it is the one currently holding onto you. The mirror is finally clear, and the reflection is not a person, but a series of reactions waiting for a prompt to begin again. The descent is over, and you are now standing on the floor of the void, looking up at the light you used to believe in.